Section 1.3, multiplication with whole numbers. What we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be recognize and use the properties of multiplication, recognize and use the distributive property, multiply whole numbers, and multiply whole numbers mentally by using powers of 10. Okay, we're going to look at some symbols. Okay, normally we used to use the cross sign here, but notice now we're going to be moving on to things like parentheses. We're also going to be using a dot. The dot and the parentheses are going to become more and more prevalent as we kind of move forward. Let's continue on. The order of the numbers in multiplication can be reversed without changing the product. For example, 3 times 4 equals 12 and 4 times 3 equals 12. Okay, remember we saw that with addition. Okay, continuing on. And grouping, associative property multiplication. The grouping of numbers in multiplication can be changed without changing the product. For example, 4 times 2 grouped together times 5 is going to be 8 times 5 equals 40. And 4 times the grouping of 2 times 5 is going to be 4 times 10, and that equals 40. Notice it's just like grouping from before with multiplication. It's the same thing, associative and commutative. It works the same thing in multiplication. Okay, and then the product of any number and 1 is the same number. For example, 6 times 1 equals 6, and 1 times 14 equals 14. This number 1 is called the multiplicative identity, just like how we have an additive identity with 0 and in addition. Now we have the 1 with multiplicative identity. Okay, the product of a number of 0 is always 0. So 63 times 0 and 0 times 7 equals 0. The product of any number of 0 is always 0. We always call that the zero factor law, or the multiplication property of 0. But like I've said, don't get hung up on too many of these. Just kind of learn the rules of them. The names will come later. Let's just remember the rules. And then continue on. Just some examples of some of the properties here. Notice here that when we switch orders, that gives us the commutative property. Notice here the grouping. We can change the groupings. That gives us the associative. And then also 8 times 1 is 8. That gives us our identity because it does not change the original 8. And then notice multiplying by 0 just gives us 0. Okay. And then we also have a new one here. It's called the distributive property. Multiplication can be distributed over addition. For example, 5 with the grouping of 8 plus 3, you can multiply this 5. In fact, I'll get the pen out. You'll see me draw it like this a lot, where I'll just do something like this, where I'll do 5 times 8, then you do the 5 plus 5 times 3. And you do that and that. That's the multiplication be distributed. So you'll see some examples of that. So, use the distributive property to simplify each expression. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply from here to here, and then we're going to multiply from here to here. Okay, so 6 times 3, that is going to be 18. Okay, and then we're going to have the plus, and then we're going to do 6 times 5. Well, 6 times 5 is 30. And then we can just add those together, and we're going to get 48. Okay, so let's do the next one here. We've got 4 times 7, and then 4 times 8. I don't know why this is there. We're just going to X that out. Okay, so when we do 4 times 7, okay, 4 times 7 is going to be 28. And then 8 times 4, okay, well, think about it. You got 8, 16, 24, and then 32. Okay, and when you add those together, notice you get 8 plus 2. That's going to be a 10. Carry the 1, and you're going ahead and get 60. Let's continue on to example 3 here, and notice that we've got to multiply 4 times 73. And we'd use the distributive property to this. Now, mind you, you're not going to do this whole bunch. This is good for kind of mental math, I guess. But by the distributive property, we can notice that you can do 4 times 73, or 4, 70 plus 3. Notice they kind of did this in a weird expanded notation that we learned about. So then you get the 4 times 3 plus the 4 times 70. Well, 4 times 3 is 12, and then 4 times 70 is 280. Add those together and you get the 292. Okay, but notice here, this is usually written in the vertical format as the following steps indicate, which I'll show you right now. This is how you're normally going to see this. And so how we're going to do this is we're going to start here at our first little position here. Okay, and we're going to go 7 times 7. Well, 7 times 7 here is going to be 49. Okay, and just like with addition, we're going to put the 9 there and then put the 4 up top. 7 times 3, well, that's going to give us 21. Now we don't multiply by 4 here. We're going to add on the 4. So when you add on the 4, you're going to get 25. Okay? Moving over means we need to move over by 1, and so we're going to add a 0 here, knowing that we're going to go to our tens place now. Now we come in here and go, well, 7 times 2 is going to be 14. Okay? Then we'll go ahead and mark out this right here, so we don't get mistaken, and then put a 1 above that. Because remember, I had a 14, got to carry the 1. So I got 3 times 2, well, that's going to be 6. Add 1 is going to be 7. Okay? And then when you get to here, you go ahead and just add everything together. So 9 plus 0 is just going to be a 9. And then 5 plus 4 is going to be a 9. And then notice here, we've also got a 9. So when you multiply all of these together, your answer is going to be 999. All right, let's look at multiplying whole numbers by powers of 10. Okay, to multiply a whole number by 10, write 0 to the right. By 100, write 2 more zeros. By 1,000, write 3 zeros. By 10,000, write 4 zeros, and so on and so on. Notice, we're just looking at how many zeros are on the 10. I'll show you some examples here. Okay, let's multiply 6 times 700. Well, let's just do 7 times 6. Well, 7 times 6 is 42, and then I can just add on those 2 zeros. Well, notice here I've got 5 times 7. Well, 5 times 7 is just going to be 35. But then how many zeros I got? Well, I got 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to add 3 zeros. Okay, and don't forget to add our comma. 2 times 8 is going to be 16. But then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. Make sure to add my comma. Okay, well, 7 times 9. That's going to be 63. Okay, and count our zeros again. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go and add in our zeros. Put in our commas, and notice for that one, we have 63 million. Okay, let's continue on here. Okay, now we're going to look at an area of a rectangle. Since we're dealing with multiplication, we're going to have formulas now that we're going to need to remember. And I'm going to put this in the formula you're going to see it in, and that's going to be area equals length times width. And we're not into the point of seeing variables yet, but this is saying whenever you have a number of length, you're going to multiply that same number by the width. And we'll see here by the next example. Calculate the area of the rectangle of the plot of land with the dimensions shown here. 92 feet by 186 feet. And what this is saying is if you start to calculate all the little bitty squares that are in here by 1 foot by 1 foot squares, that's going to be your area. Well, notice here we have a length. Okay, and then this can be our width. Well, whenever we put this in, notice that becomes multiplication because we said area equals length times width. Well, for this area is going to equal 92 times 186. And we can put that vertically, which we do right here, and then just start working out our formula. So we've got 6 times 2, which is going to be 12. 8 times 2 is going to be 16 plus 1. That gives me 17. Carry the 1. 2 times 2 times 1 is 2. Remember, that's an identity. And then add 1, so that's going to be 3. Let's add on our 0 because we're going to the tens place. Okay. 9 times 6 is going to be 54. I'm going to cross this out right here. Put a 5 right there. Okay. 9 times 8 is going to be 72. Then we're going to add 5. So 9 times 8 is 72. That's going to give us 77. Put a 7 right here. And then 9 times 1 is 9. Plus 7. That's going to be 16. Let's go and add all this up now. Okay, so we got 2 plus 0 is 2. Then we got 7 plus 4. That's going to equal 11. Carry the 1. Then we're going to get another 11 here. Carry the 1 again. Get a 7. And then just bring down this 1. And so we know that the area of the plot of land is 17,112. And here's a little way they're going to write this. Feet squared. So all those little squares that we talked about right here, okay, back up here, we're going to need 17,112 of them to fill all that in.